Welcome to Logic Blocks, where to connect for maximum impact. In this lesson, we explain where logic blocks can be connected in the Nextworld platform, when you would use each connection, and provide examples of each. Applications help users perform specific tasks. A developer connects a logic block to an application to perform specific actions as a result of user interaction. Connect a logic block to an application when you need to modify the application's UI, validate data entry, or perform many other actions. Logic blocks attached to the application do not modify the underlying table until the user saves the record. Let's look at an example of a logic block connected to an application. A user is adding a new customer to the directory application. After entering the standard customer details, they encounter a checkbox asking if the customer has multiple locations. If the user selects this, the logic block displays the additional address fields that were hidden from the user. The developer connected this UI logic block to the application to make the form more intuitive. To summarize, connect a logic block to an application to improve user experience. A table is where records are stored and managed. Logic blocks connected to a table ensure that data stored in the table is handled correctly. These logic blocks validate record data and update tables as needed. You can connect a logic block to a table in two ways: as a table trigger or as an action block. Let's start by looking at table triggers. Table triggers always run when the associated insert, update, or delete modification is made to the table, and they cannot be bypassed. Use a table trigger when you want to govern all interactions with table data without exception. Like in this example, a user is entering an order into the sales order application. Business rules state that discounts may not exceed 10% of the original sales total. To enforce this, when the user selects Save, a table trigger logic block always validates the discount amount. If the discount is greater than 10%, the save fails. The developer implemented this logic block as a table trigger to ensure every discount is reviewed before saving. On the other hand, action blocks manage how information moves into and between tables. They intercept saves and endpoint calls to validate data, much like triggers, but still let other processes update the data. Let's review an example. A user enters data into the sales order application and selects Save. At this point, the logic block takes over, validating that the sales order record conforms to all set business rules. It then enters default values as needed and calls other logic blocks associated with the sales order. The other associated logic blocks may verify that there are enough items in stock to fulfill the order, reserve those items, check if the customer is in good standing, and initiate a workflow to process the order. The developer implemented this logic block as an action block because action blocks can confirm the order meets all business rules, launch other logic blocks, and queue a workflow. Remember, connecting a logic block to a table will ensure data is accurately maintained. A workflow represents the state of a record as it progresses through its life cycle. Logic blocks can be attached to workflow transitions to manage progress from one step to the next. Run after a successful state change, or approve or reject transitions. Connect a logic block to a workflow if the logic should run when a specific event happens. For example, a user launches the onboarding workflow on a new employee's first day. When the workflow reaches Create Employee Accounts, a logic block creates user accounts in multiple systems, including email, payroll, and benefits. The logic block also updates the employee table with account setup details. The developer attached this logic block to the onboarding workflow, since it is initiated by the change in the workflow status. Remember to connect a logic block to a workflow to ensure the logic is executed when a specific event happens. Job schedulers run on a consistent schedule by initializing a background logic block on the specified cadence. Jobs are often used when purging or archiving data, updating records, or grouping updates into a larger batch for processing all at once. Connect background logic to a job scheduler when you want the logic block to run at a set schedule, as we do in this example. A company invoices all customers with active subscriptions on the third Thursday of each month. A job runs at 3 a.m. on the third Thursday, triggering a background logic block that reviews subscription data, generates invoices, and sends them to customers. The job is scheduled for early morning hours to avoid interfering with business operations. The developer chose to connect the logic block to the job scheduler to ensure the process is completed accurately and on time. Be sure to connect a logic block to a job when the action must be completed on a set schedule, on time, and without user interaction. Let's review. Application. Connect a logic block to run when a user takes a specific action. Table. Connect a logic block to oversee any modifications to table data. Workflow. Connect a logic block if the logic should run when a transition happens. Job scheduler. Connect a background logic block to perform a job that should be run on scheduled intervals. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. To learn more about this topic, please refer to Nextworld Help.